Power has never belonged to the loudest man in the room. It has always belonged to the man no one can read, the man whose intentions are hidden behind calm eyes, the man whose silence makes others lean in, unsure, unsettled, searching for meaning that is not being offered. Most men believe control looks aggressive. They think it comes from domination, force, intimidation, or authority declared out loud. That belief is why they remain powerless. True control is subtle. It is quiet. It works best when the person being controlled believes they are acting freely. The greatest mistake you have been making your entire life is assuming power must announce itself. Every time you explained yourself, you exposed your motives. Every time you reacted emotionally, you revealed your triggers. Every time you rushed to clarify your position, you handed others the blueprint to manipulate you. Machiavelli understood something most men never will. The moment people understand you, they stop fearing you. And the moment they stop fearing you, they stop respecting you. Control does not begin with others. Control begins with concealment. To control people without them knowing, the first rule is this: never reveal what you want. Desire is weakness when it is visible. The man who wants something too badly is already defeated. His urgency leaks through his words, his posture, his tone. Others sense it instantly. And once they sense it, they begin to shape their behavior not in your favor, but against your need. Machiavelli warned that men are driven by self-interest, fear, and advantage. If they know what you want, they will withhold it to increase their leverage. If they sense your dependency, they will exploit it. This is why the powerful man masks his desires behind neutrality. He asks questions without revealing his hand. He listens more than he speaks. He lets others expose themselves while he remains undefined. The undefined man is dangerous. When people cannot read your intentions, they project their own fears onto you. They overthink your silence. They analyze your pauses. They assume depth where there may be none, and strength where certainty is absent. This projection works in your favor because the human mind hates uncertainty more than it hates opposition. You must understand this deeply. People will obey uncertainty faster than they obey authority. Authority invites challenge. Uncertainty creates hesitation. The first invisible string of control is emotional neutrality. When someone speaks to you with anger, excitement, desperation, or manipulation, and you respond with calm indifference, you destabilize them. Their emotional energy has nowhere to land. They feel exposed, off balance. Suddenly, they are reacting to you, not the other way around. This is not accidental. This is strategy. The man who does not react controls the tempo of every interaction. He decides when things move forward and when they stall. He decides when conversations end and when they linger. He decides who feels important and who feels invisible. Most men lose power because they rush. They rush to reply, rush to defend, rush to prove, rush to correct. In doing so, they surrender timing. And timing is everything. Machiavelli observed that power favors the patient, not the impulsive. Delay creates anxiety. Silence creates imbalance. When you pause before responding, the other person fills that silence with self-doubt. They start adjusting their tone. They soften their position. They reveal more than they intended. This is how control begins, by letting others talk themselves into weakness. Another string of invisible control is selective validation. Humans are addicted to approval. They crave it like oxygen, yet they rarely notice when it is being withheld strategically. When you validate someone occasionally, but not consistently, you create dependence. They begin seeking your reaction. Your approval becomes scarce, and scarcity increases value. This is why unpredictable warmth is more powerful than constant kindness. Machiavelli did not believe in generosity without purpose. He believed in measured rewards. Praise given too freely loses its impact. Respect given without effort breeds entitlement. But approval given sparingly becomes a tool of influence. You must become emotionally economical. Say less, praise less, react less, give less. The man who gives little forces others to give more. People will unconsciously try to earn your attention if it is not easily available. They will adjust their behavior. They will mirror your values. They will suppress traits they believe you dislike. They will elevate traits they believe you respect. And they will do all of this without realizing they are being guided. This is control without confrontation. Another truth Machiavelli understood. People reveal themselves when they believe they are in control. Your job is to let them feel that way. Ask open-ended questions. Let them speak. Let them brag. Let them complain. Let them expose their fears, desires, insecurities, and ambitions. While they talk, you collect information. Information is the currency of dominance. The man who knows more than he reveals holds the advantage in every relationship. The moment someone exposes their motivations to you, you gain leverage. You now know what moves them, what scares them, what they want, and what they are avoiding. Meanwhile, they know nothing about you. This imbalance is power. Never correct people unnecessarily. Never interrupt their assumptions. If someone underestimates you, let them. If someone misunderstands your position, let them. False assumptions work in your favor because they shape how others behave toward you. Machiavelli taught that appearing weak at the right moment can be more powerful than appearing strong. When people believe you lack ambition, they lower their guard. When they believe you are harmless, they reveal their plans. When they believe you are beneath them, they stop hiding their intentions, and once intentions are visible, control becomes effortless. Another invisible string is emotional containment. Never allow others to see what affects you. The moment someone knows what angers you, they own a weapon. The moment they know what excites you, they own a lever. The moment they know what hurts you, they own a trigger. This is why emotional transparency is dangerous in competitive environments. You do not need to suppress emotion. You need to conceal it. Feel everything. Reveal nothing. The man who shows emotion too freely becomes predictable. Predictability is vulnerability. Machiavelli despised predictability because it allows enemies to plan. The unreadable man cannot be anticipated. He cannot be rushed. He cannot be baited. Control people without them knowing begins with controlling yourself completely. Most manipulation fails because the manipulator leaks intent. They push too hard. They seek outcomes too quickly. They overplay their hand. But subtle control is patient. It unfolds naturally. It feels organic. It feels like free will to the one being guided. You are not forcing behavior. You are shaping conditions. Silence, delay, neutrality, scarcity, observation. These are the tools of invisible power. By mastering them, you stop chasing influence and start attracting it. People adjust around you. They seek your approval. They fear your disinterest. They second-guess themselves in your presence. And the most dangerous part? They will never know why. They will simply feel that something about you commands gravity. That being around you feels different. That your presence alters the room. That your absence is noticed. This is the foundation. The most effective control never feels like control. It feels like choice. This is the mistake weak men make. They try to dominate outcomes directly. They argue. They insist. They persuade aggressively. And in doing so, they trigger resistance. The human ego is wired to resist force. The moment someone feels pushed, they push back, even if it harms them. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He knew that men defend their freedom even when it destroys them. So the master strategist never removes freedom. He reshapes it. To control people, without them knowing, you must become an architect of environments, not a commander of actions. You do not tell people what to do. You make the alternative unbearable. This is the first principle of invisible pressure. People move not toward pleasure, but away from discomfort. If you want to guide behavior, you do not threaten punishment. You simply withdraw comfort, silence, access, warmth, opportunity. Validation. When something they value disappears without explanation, their mind panics. They search for cause. They replay interactions. They self-correct without being asked. You never spoke, yet they changed. This is pressure without fingerprints. Machiavelli wrote that fear is more reliable than love, but what most men misunderstand is that fear does not require violence. The most effective fear is the fear of loss, loss of status, loss of relevance, loss of access. When you become a source of value, calm, clarity, opportunity, approval, and then selectively remove yourself, people feel the loss immediately. They don't rage outward. They collapse inward. They ask, "What did I do wrong?" And the moment someone asks that question, they are already beneath you. Another invisible mechanism is controlled ambiguity. Never be fully clear about your boundaries. Never fully explain your standards. Let people sense them, not define them. Why? Because clear rules invite negotiation. Ambiguity invites obedience. When people don't know exactly where the line is, they behave more cautiously. They overcompensate. They try harder. They avoid risk. They self-police. This is why powerful men are often misunderstood. Their silence is not confusion, it is calibration. Machiavelli observed that rulers who explained themselves too much were weakened. Explanation removes mystery. Mystery creates gravity. When you explain, you equalize. When you remain silent, you elevate. Another layer of control is mirroring without surrender. People trust those who feel familiar. They relax around those who reflect their language, their rhythm, their worldview. But here is the trap. Most men mirror to bond. The strategist mirrors to gather leverage. You reflect their values without adopting them. You echo their concerns without committing to them. You acknowledge without agreeing. This creates psychological safety for them. And psychological safety makes people careless. They speak more freely. They reveal more honestly. They assume alignment that does not exist. Meanwhile, you stay internally detached, watching, learning, storing information. Information changes the balance of power. The man who knows what someone fears, wants, envies, or avoids can influence them without ever raising his voice. You never say, "Do this." You simply place what they want behind behavior that benefits you. This is how loyalty is shaped. This is how compliance is manufactured. Another principle Machiavelli understood deeply. People follow confidence, not correctness. Certainty is magnetic. Hesitation is contagious. When you speak less but speak decisively, your words carry disproportionate weight. When you hesitate, people sense weakness. When you are calm and unmoved, people assume you know something they don't. You don't need to prove intelligence. You need to project unshakability. This is why emotional stability is dominance in disguise. When chaos surrounds you and you remain unaffected, people orient themselves around you. They defer. They wait. They ask. They adjust. You become the reference point. And reference points shape decisions. Another invisible tool is letting others win small victories. This sounds counterintuitive to weak men. They believe winning everything proves strength. In reality, it creates resentment and resistance. Machiavelli knew that controlled loss builds long-term power. When you allow others to feel clever, competent, or victorious in minor matters, they drop their guard. They feel superior. They assume you are not a threat. But while they celebrate small wins, you retain control of the larger board. Never fight for trivial dominance. Save power for moments that matter. This is how empires outlast egos. You must also master strategic inconsistency. Predictability is comforting, but it is also exploitable. If people can predict your reactions, they can plan around you. If they know you will always respond the same way, they stop respecting your presence. Occasional unpredictability resets the hierarchy. Not emotional volatility, not chaos, but selective deviation. Sometimes you respond warmly. Sometimes you don't respond at all. Sometimes you reward behavior. Sometimes you ignore the same behavior. This creates cognitive dissonance in others. They cannot lock you into a pattern. They cannot game your system, so they adapt to you instead. This is subtle dominance. Another truth Machiavelli exposed. People reveal loyalty when they believe it is voluntary. Never demand loyalty. Demanding loyalty exposes insecurity. Instead, create conditions where loyalty feels advantageous, where alignment with you brings stability, status, or opportunity. Where opposition brings uncertainty, people will choose you not because you force them, but because it feels safer. And safety is the strongest motivator in human psychology. Never forget this. Men will betray ideals, they will betray morals, they will betray others, but they rarely betray what protects them. Finally, understand this distinction clearly. Manipulation is crude. Influence is elegant. Manipulation forces short-term outcomes. Influence reshapes long-term behavior. Machiavellian control is not about bending people once. It is about positioning yourself so that people bend themselves over and over without noticing. You are not playing checkers. You are shaping gravity. Temporary control is easy. Permanent control is rare. Most men can influence once. Very few can condition behavior so deeply that people defend the very forces guiding them. This is where Machiavellian power reaches its final form, not domination, not fear alone, but internalized alignment. The highest level of control is when people believe your interests are their own. This is the end game. To reach it, you must understand a brutal truth about human psychology. People will protect what they helped create. If you openly control someone, they resist. If you secretly guide them to choose your direction themselves, they defend it even against their own logic. This is why the most powerful rulers never looked like tyrants. They looked like inevitabilities. The first mechanism of permanent control is identity attachment. Never attach people to you. Attach people to a version of themselves that only exists around you. When someone feels smarter, calmer, more respected, more capable, or more themselves, in your presence, they unconsciously associate that identity with you. Losing you feels like losing who they are becoming. This is deeper than loyalty. This is psychological dependence disguised as growth. You do this by reinforcing traits selectively. You reward behaviors that align with your interests, not overtly, but subtly. A nod, a pause, a slight shift in tone, a moment of attention. People chase the version of themselves that you reflect back to them. Once identity is involved, control becomes self-sustaining. Another irreversible mechanism is moral framing. Never present your position as preference, present it as principle. People argue with opinions, they submit to morals. When your values are framed as discipline, order, logic, or strength, and alternatives are framed as chaos, weakness, or irresponsibility, people begin to self-regulate to stay on the right side. They do not obey you, they obey the identity you've framed. This is how power survives scrutiny. Machiavelli understood that men want to believe they are good even when acting selfishly. If you give them a moral justification for aligning with you, they will silence their doubts themselves. You don't coerce, you legitimize. The next layer is making opposition psychologically expensive. Never punish dissent directly. Let dissent isolate itself. When someone challenges you and receives no reaction, no argument, no anger, no acknowledgement, while others continue receiving your calm presence, the dissenter feels the cost immediately. Humans fear social exclusion more than failure. If alignment brings stability and neutrality, and opposition brings invisibility, most people will adjust without being asked. This is why silence outlasts aggression. Another critical principle is letting others rationalize your authority. Never explain why you lead. Let others explain it for you. When people start saying things like, "He just sees things differently," or "He's calm under pressure," or "He doesn't waste time on nonsense," you have crossed a threshold. They are no longer evaluating you. They are justifying you. Once people defend your behavior to others, control has entered their identity. Attacking you now feels like attacking their judgment. And people will protect their ego at all costs. This is why the most powerful men rarely argue. They let others argue for them. Another irreversible lever is controlled absence at moments of peak reliance. When people depend on your presence, your guidance, your clarity, your approval, and you temporarily withdraw without explanation, it creates psychological shock, not panic. Reorientation. They feel the vacuum. They notice the imbalance. They realize how much weight you carried silently, and when you return, unchanged, unbothered, you are no longer seen as optional. You are structural. This is not disappearance. This is strategic retreat. Machiavelli warned that constant availability breeds contempt, but selective absence creates hierarchy. Finally, understand this law above all others. The man who never needs to win arguments always wins wars. When you stop trying to convince, people convince themselves. When you stop defending your position, it becomes immovable. When you stop explaining your power, it becomes unquestioned. This is the paradox weak men cannot accept. Control strengthens when it is invisible. By now, you should see the pattern clearly. You do not command behavior, you shape incentives. You do not enforce loyalty, you make alignment safer than resistance. You do not dominate emotionally, you remain unaffected, while others adjust. You do not seek validation, you become the standard. This is why Machiavellian power terrifies people who do not understand it. It cannot be pointed to. It cannot be protested. It cannot be easily fought. There is no villain to confront, only a presence that changes the room. At this level, people don't ask, "Why do I follow him?" They ask, "Why would I go against him?" And that question ends the game. You must also accept the cost. This level of control requires discipline, emotional restraint, patience, the willingness to be misunderstood, the strength to remain calm while others project motives onto you. You will not be liked by everyone. You will not be understood by most. But you will never be manipulated again. You will never be rushed. Never be pressured. Never be emotionally cornered. Because the man who controls himself completely cannot be controlled by anyone else. This is not cruelty. This is sovereignty. You are not taking freedom from others. You are refusing to surrender your own. The men who fail at this path fail because they crave recognition. They want to be seen as powerful. They want credit. They want applause. Machiavellian men do not seek applause. They seek outcomes. And outcomes favor the silent, the patient, the unreadable. From this point forward, you move differently. You speak less. You observe more. You react last, if at all. You let others reveal themselves while you remain undefined. You let others chase clarity while you remain composed. You let others burn energy while you conserve it. Control people without them knowing is not about manipulation, it is about positioning. When you are positioned correctly, influence happens automatically. And the final truth, one only a few men ever grasp, is this: the strongest form of power is not forcing others to move. It is becoming so centered, so grounded, so internally sovereign that others move around you without being asked. That is the Machiavellian endgame. And once you reach it, no one ever truly escapes your gravity.